61.
61.
Yep. We have a topic.
Yeah. I don't know if I feel ready to explore the topic, but we'll explore it.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
It's a doozy, yeah.
It's going to make everyone very upset.
So, yeah, turn off the podcast right now.
Just abort. Yeah. So, spoiler alert. Everyone's been loving everybody wrong.
Well,
All the people you love, you've been doing it wrong. All the people that love you, they've been doing it wrong. And not just wrong, but like in a malevolent way.
wait, is malevolent good, bad?
Bad.
Oh.
Yeah. Not necessarily consciously, not necessarily on purpose, but driven through trauma and pain bodies. Your love is actually abuse. Shocker. Hard to accept. Not me.
I mean,
Not me.
We've
right?
been talking about this for a year now.
Yeah.
This is just kind of like maybe like a podcast, just an episode dedicated to the abuse portion of it. Maybe to help people see through the nuances of that. I mean, that this is all the thing we have been already saying.
Right.
It's just, it is so much larger and so much bigger than we imagine. Then that, I guess I will say this, like to say that, what love is or what we experience as love is actually abuse is such a hard thing to accept.
Right.
And so it's maybe to some extent, it's not that we don't know this. It's just we don't want to acknowledge this. And that's the difficult part.
Yeah. Right. I think once you really understand what we mean by that, then it's you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see it. So I mean, some things are more overt than others. Some things are like, oh, well, that's obviously, abuse. But some things are sneakier and are harder to convince yourself that that's really not a true form of love. If you try to come up with an example now.
I mean, everything in our life is just that. I mean, to begin with, right, this is how it starts. To begin with, we all get into a relationship because we want to resolve the childhood trauma that we have within us.
Right.
Unresolved childhood trauma, unresolved pain, right? If we were subjected to something that we couldn't process or we couldn't actualize, or we don't know actually what it is. We get into a relationship of love or friendship, usually in order to bring back up that trauma. So then we can actualize it as an adult, right? Be able to see through it and then resolve it, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, no, that is a subconscious goal, right? Like the thing that I sent you on Instagram, the guy did a really good job at kind of like saying that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, wait. I thought to myself, here's my pain body. I'm like, okay, if I sent this to Aiden, then maybe he'll hear the same thing that I've been saying, but from this different guy and different standpoint. And then, that's what it is. Sometimes it's just, different people register, or most definitely your mother usually doesn't register or registers completely in the wrong way. And so whatever issues that you had left over from your childhood will then come in and establish themselves as your love pattern. Like quite literally, your idea of love will get convoluted in the things you need to accomplish in your life in order to resolve and let go of the trauma that you have not processed. Right? Because that's what you will think. You will think like, oh, once I found someone that I love, they will solve, right? The guy said they will solve all of these things that I already don't feel before even getting married, before even started dating, before even like receiving good friends.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the maybe Western, maybe universal idea of love in a modern sense, is that I'm going to go find someone who I'm going to love and they're going to love me. And that just makes everything okay. All the things that are wrong in my life are solved with love, with someone to love me. And that goes back to the prevalence of like anytime someone goes to have a card reading or whatever, it's, when am I going to find the right guy? When am I going to find the right girl? Love, love, love.
Yeah.
Because they think that's going to solve, that external thing will in and of itself solve the problem. Having someone to love solves the problem. It's the belief.
Yeah. And so the butterfly stage, in some sense, that you get is your happiness about actually finding that someone.
Right.
You're not happy about the circumstance. Your circumstances have not changed. The pain body that you need to release is still there. But now, for the first, let's say, year or two, you're happy that you actually found someone who's going to solve.
Sure.
Who's going to be your solution. You found your solution.
Not only that,
here's your saving grace.
Not only that, you're flooded with, endorphins and dopamine and what is the?
Oxytocin.
Oxytocin.
Yeah, I call it oxy.
Yeah, there's two different oxys.
It's the same oxy.
One's maybe more dangerous than the other.
It's the same oxy, let's be honest.
And
it's an escape.
And your partner now can do no wrong. They're perfect. Oh, they farted. How cute. Oh, they leave the door open when they poo. How cute. Oh, I don't know. That might be too much.
Too close.
And eventually, those things that, oh, that's so cute. You end up resenting later and later.
Yeah. And that resentment looks very bad 20, 30 years in, if you even make it that far. But subconsciously, the actual accord that you're engaging in with somebody that you come in contact with is that you are here to facilitate more of the pain and trauma, because they're not there to facilitate it, but their actions will trigger within you your reaction to the pain and trauma that you're already not processing inside. Mm-hmm. And then you will be that same refractory nature for your partner, to where then my actions will trigger the same things within you that you did not process, from your childhood.
Right. And it seems like we almost seek out partners to really hone in on that too.
There's that. So the partner will kind of be within that realm of closeness to the situation of your home. They're not going to be the exact duplicate of it, but they're going to be in some way remnant of that issue.
They'll have, somewhere in the neighborhood.
Yeah, because like with me, to you, I have a very dominating personality, and I'm very opinionated, and then especially, my way or the highway is kind of like my thing, but that is because my trigger is on safety, right? So my way or the highway is my way of being, because my personal pain body then reflects out that, oh, hey, look, here's how I keep myself safe. Like, everything's controlled, everything's blah, 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 right? And so, if you ask me when I first met you, like, the relationship that I want to have with you is where you're able to speak to me.
Yeah.
But the relationship that you wanted to have with me is you wanted to place me as this bad guy who narcissistically controls all of your life, right? And so we struggled with that. Like,
right. You want someone to push back.
Yeah, I want someone who's on par with me. Like, I want an equal partner.
Yeah. And I wanted an equal partner, but I didn't want to go up to that level. I wanted you to come down to my level, I think.
No, I think you, in the long run, you wanted me to somehow be the bad guy, just like your mother was. And so I kept on saying, I'm like, I want a normal relationship with you. I don't want to have a hierarchy. And it was really difficult for me to actually even verbalize or decide what that meant. Because I'm like, why is it's not, I have my own tendency that's spurred out of my own personal pain body. But that does not mean that you should then succumb and then not have a voice.
Yeah.
And with you, which I had a huge problem with, you not having a voice, right? And then with you, the problem was like, oh yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable not having a voice because this is something I'm used to my entire life.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then you were more than perfectly comfortable to have me be that way, because then you had an excuse of why you didn't have to find a voice. And I don't know where I was on that end. But, from my personal standpoint, whatever my personal pain body was. Yeah, but so to highlight that, right, to kind of unravel all of that, that's just how it comes through in the three-dimensional physical exploratory way, or like emotional, like just scratching the surface, right?
Yeah.
But if you are in a relationship where your partner wants something from you, or wants you to have something from them, or wants your life to go a specific way, and then they're doing things for you in order to make sure that this is how your life turns out. All of those things, as like, right, like those things that don't actually sound bad.
Right. I mean, those are ostensibly the things that you do for your partner.
Yeah. This is as harsh as it sounds. It is just abuse because you're using your partner to live out and express your unprocessed trauma and pain body.
Yeah.
And so that is the definition of abuse that I'm extending it to, is that instead of this partner being a sovereign being that just happens to be next to you, and the two of you can have experiences together and talk through things, and you can go, oh, hey, look, I have this tendency, or I have this trigger, and this is how it's triggering me. And so you doing that actually triggers me. And then both of you can explore that trigger. That is how a relationship, a loving relationship, starts out as honesty on both of the partners' behalves, to where you can honestly talk to each other and go, hey, I know that's completely not on you, and this is my trigger, but like, I want you to do this for this particular reason. And then from that, you can have a conversation. You can be like, oh yeah, like the partner can go, yeah, I don't actually want that. I don't feel like I need this. But then at the same time, then the partner can go, but let's explore, why is it that you want me to behave a certain way? Or why is it that you want me to dress a certain way? Or what is it inside of you that you're projecting onto me as your personal problem that causes you to want something from me? Thus, this is not love, right?
Right.
Now, maybe this is like a little asterisk. The whole point of you two coming together is to be able to constructively work out your bullshit.
Right.
So there is some benefit within the partnership that the two of you are there either as triggers for each other, but not as triggers. Like the partner will find you to be triggering, and you will find me to be triggering, right? And there's benefit to that. So just being able to be within a relationship, a safe relationship where both of you can be open and honest, and then both grow independently of each other, but together, right? As assistants, like you and I assist each other in growing.
Yeah.
But in no way does that have anything to do with love, and should be perceived as love, or should be in any way tied to love. That is just a working relationship of two human beings who come together to help each other grow. Right.
It could be, husband and wife. It could be two roommates. It could be,
No, but in this case, love
for as far as that goes.
Yeah, but I'm meaning like that is not love in a sense that is what love is. You're supposed to, be there for me and give up your sovereignty and fall under my spell of whatever. Or
be your knight in shining armor and save
whatever.
You for everything.
Yeah, all of that. None of those notions are love. That is just your pain body spewing out of itself onto this circumstance of a relationship, be it romantic or be in friendship, like, or a coworker. And then you have this to work through within your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I mean, the big thing to realize there is that no matter what, these triggers are going to come up, but the goal is to recognize them, be aware of them. If you're not, that's like the first step in that.
Yeah. And, so maybe to begin with, it is important to point out and differentiate that is what we mean by abuse, is that what we have come to identify as love, like, oh, he's going to be my knight in shining armor. And to him, like, oh, I'm going to be the knight in shining armor that's going to save the damsel in distress. What to begin with as children, right? Or as immature adults, we convolute that concept of that is what this relationship will
Right.
be. Or even like, oh, they will be there to fill the gap of when don't have anyone to spend time to or when they talk, right? That is still not love. That is you wanting someone to talk to.
Right. I mean, and there's the idea of, having compassion and, and you understand their trigger and you don't want them to, feel that discomfort. Right. And, what can I do to alleviate that discomfort? There's something there, but so often I think it goes the wrong way. I don't know if this is a good example, but your dad used to bring you flowers on occasion for your birthday, for special occasions, for the kids' plays or whatever, and you always had such a problem with it.
Well, I have two problems with it. One,
yeah.
murdering a living being for the purpose of consumerism.
Yeah.
Right.
Not only that, but very temporary consumerism.
Yeah, very temporary. So it's like cut flowers to me. Just
yeah.
Get
a living plant instead.
Yeah, right. There's many solutions outside of that. As far as like if you want to give someone flowers, just do a living plant. It doesn't have to be a flowering plant, any plant.
Yeah.
So to begin with, there's that, but then in this case, there's a much, much deeper issue with that.
It's like on the surface, giving someone flowers sounds like the best thing. That's literally the example. Chocolates and flowers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the canonical example of what a man is supposed to give to his woman.
Well, in this case, father to a daughter.
Sure, right. Father to a daughter. Same story. But there's a lot in this particular case. There's a lot behind that is not really kosher. There's there's a lot of how it will be perceived. I think. No, that's not how it is. I mean, what you will think of it?
It has nothing to do with me. Yeah, so I will go into this. Maybe if my dad's listening, he'll be like, "The fuck." But no. So yeah, and he admitted to this, right? I said, when he brought me flowers, and the last time I kind of flipped out, like, and maybe in a little bit more of an aggressive way, and I'm like, "You're doing this for the wrong reason," and he's like, "Yes, I know," and I'm like, and so that is the part that is triggering for me. More so even than blindness, right? You can almost excuse the blindness, but knowing that you're doing this for the wrong reason and still continuing to do it is a huge trigger for me. And so, right, because like to me, it triggers into unsafety and then triggers into like the choice into blindness. What is it? You can almost excuse someone's ignorance. To where like, oh, well, they don't know any better. But when they know better and then still choose to behave a certain way, that's extremely triggering for me. Because then, there's then you truly question your position in that person's relationship. That's where it really goes for me. It's like, I start to really think of like, you start to really realize where you belong in that person's relationship and where you don't belong in that person's relationship. And then the entire narrative that I had designed in my head kind of really quickly falls apart when you realize that, oh yeah, it's not even one. I know it's not about me, but even knowing that this is not about me, this person still chooses to behave that way. There's nowhere to go, right? I almost feel trapped to where like there's no way out of that. There's just nowhere to go. You know what I mean? And at that point, you can't even start looking at that person as anything but someone who's knowingly does something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that triggering for you?
Maybe.
Why is that? Because you feel like you were that way? Or do you still feel like you're that way? Let's start there.
No, I mean, I feel like I was that way. I was going to ask what was his reason?
Yeah, so his reason in Ukraine, being able to afford flowers and give someone flowers was such an abundant thought process, such an abundant way of living. And so because he grew up in so much scarcity and like the epitome of giving someone flowers was like, oh, look, we're poor, or, poor slash and the low income, right? So like splurging of flowers is a big deal. So in that case, here's the various components. Being able to go out of your way and then provide someone with expensive bouquet of flowers, to him would have been ultimate communication of love in his convoluted, broken sense of being, because it's out of scarcity and out of low income. I'm still going out to give you all I can.
That's what I mean by how he's perceived. It's perceived as, I'm still going out of my way to do it.
Yeah, but in the long run, the pain body is not how somebody perceives you, it's how you perceive yourself in that action. You're everything you're doing in a relationship is not really there for that person. If the action is coming out of a pain form or trauma in some way, and then you're projecting that pain form and trauma on forward, in this case, through giving the flowers to me, my reaction has really nothing to do with it. He wants that reaction to be positive, so then he can reinforce the fact that he himself feels better about going out and buying an expensive bouquet and flowers and going there. But let's be honest, it is a very one-sided form of progression, and he's just using me as the bounce through in order to reinforce what he wants to feel already. And the reason why he got angry at me, right? This is kind of the difficult part, is whenever you're in this relationship, what you have to do is you have to basically verbalize your feeling, and you go, this is not working for me. And do not, this is kind of rude to begin with, but this is where it needs to start building. Do not give the other person the satisfaction that they're actually looking for you to give them.
Yeah.
So the second he came in, and what then I gave to him was a speech of, he knows he's doing this for the wrong reason, and he's using me as a bounce through in order to justify this convoluted, broken-minded way of being. Not only did that not offer him a soothing mechanism in order to subside whatever trigger he was feeling, it actually offered him the truth. And I actually made him dive into his pain body.
Yeah. I mean,
that is something that I do very well, that people, that is why I'm so uncomfortable for most people, is because I don't usually play the game, and I actually showcase to them what they're attempting to feel. And I give them like, what is that? I give them the truth of it.
Compounded by the fact that you had explicitly said, please don't give me cut flowers.
Well, to begin with, I would say that in a kind, like, don't, and I would say, it's wasteful on money. But me saying that would only re-trigger the trigger.
Right. That almost makes it, I guess,
he wants
if you
to give
look
me
at it like that,
flowers more.
It makes it even more
triggering,
impactful in his eyes. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole process, anytime I would say, oh, don't do the flowers, to him, then the next time he does it, to him was even a bigger hit on the satisfaction to soothe and shove the hole that is the pain body, that is the trauma of the flowers.
So in this, it doesn't work if you have a negative reaction to it.
Well, in this case, it doesn't work if I verbalize and make him see through the truth of his actions.
Yeah.
And actually,
I guess just
showcase to him his own behavior.
Yeah, maybe just being angry in general. I don't know if that would work, but specifically calling it out.
No, I specifically called it out.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I got triggered, and so then what I did, I said, okay, enough is enough. Instead of me just beating around the bush, I will just go ahead and verbalize it. You're doing this for the wrong reason. I know you're doing this for the wrong reason. The flowers have nothing to do with flowers. And in fact, it's like a disgrace to the idea of flowers. So in that point, you take something that I place the highest value on, such as flowers, and you disgrace them and then turn them into kind of like a weapon of deceit and self-manipulation.
Right.
And in this case, then therefore manipulating me through you, right? So here's what I want to say. Maybe this is the extension. Anytime, like in this example, when he takes his personal pain body, in this case, of what everything that the flowers mean, and all the negativity that he has injected it from his personal standpoint, like his perfect little bow of a pain body, which is very personalized to him and his upbringing and his way of believing what the flowers are. And he takes that and knowingly or unknowingly, however you want to look at this, so consciously or subconsciously, continue through the action of blindly, or in his case, very knowingly, still driving to the flowers, getting the flowers, driving back to me and presenting me with the flowers. All of that is, to me, abuse. Because instead of spending time sitting within and taking time to recognize all of the things that he's inserting into flowers and how unkosher that experience is and how the unkosher the flowers become, right? Imagine how just the mere nature of the flowers being even around the proximity of that energy.
Right.
They'll just die within a day or two. Because
they do seem to. They do not last as long as other flowers do.
Yeah, well, energetically, that's just kind of an extrapolation on the side item where, the life is withered away if you're just doing things out of a pain body, right?
Yeah.
The food is poisonous if you're doing things from the pain body.
Yeah.
And so I perceive that as an abuse, because the responsibility of each individual is then to actualize themselves into their trauma, into their pain body, and then live their life through that actualization of awareness. But the worst interpretation of that is see those flowers as communications of love.
Yeah.
Because in this case, not only are they not love, they're actually abuse, both onto the flowers and onto the concept of giving, and onto the concept that I'm the receiver of this concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to say, to begin with, the trigger that I had on this is how my trigger was, is that there was a child within me for the longest time that wanted to receive true love, that wanted to receive. So there was a net benefit to all of this, obviously, because what his trigger was bringing up to me was just blindness and the exercising of self and blindness onto others, including me. And so for the longest time, I didn't realize that was very triggering for me, because everything that was allegedly love that was coming from him and from them, it felt like something else, right? And there was this internal fight with me that I kept on hoping for those actions to stop. I kept on hoping that the love that I actually feel from them, that it's either it would actually come out in its truest form, or if nothing else, stop coming out in this abusive form. And so the benefit there on my end, it was really difficult for me to actualize what is it that I feel, that how confused I am about, look, here's love. Oh, sure doesn't feel like it. Oh, here's love. And then I go, oh, sure doesn't feel like it. And so I realized, 40 years of my life, there were all these things that I perceived that felt like total shit, that I was super confused about why they feel so bad. Being an intuitive, right? And kind of like having, I said this before, but having this internal knowing of what love is and what love isn't, I was really confused of why everything I felt from my parents felt so shitty.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's really a difficult position to be. And I know they love me, and I know I love them. There's a benefit to being around other people's pain body in order to see the triggers that you have still left within you about your pain body.
Oh, that is very true.
So So from that standpoint, there's this acknowledgement that I had in my dad's situation about this, like, I guess a wounded child within me that was still hoping for something that was still there from that, like, unprocessed, like, confusion. Really, I think it was just confusion of like, wait, why is this love, but why does it feel like shit? Do you know what I mean? And it's really hard to, like, I have heard other people say that, and I'm like, you and I have experienced that. Like, I have experienced that with you, and I was like, somehow it was easier almost for me to realize that with you, because everything that you were doing was just such a obviously wrong thing, right? Like, there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
If somebody comes at you and they beat you up, okay, well, that's not love. You know, that's not love.
Right.
Or if somebody comes at you and then, like, they use you for your money and they rack up your credit card debts and then they leave you, then you know that's not love. Like, those things are so obvious. So you're like, oh yeah, look, it feels like shit because what was supposed to be love was actually abuse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those are easier to see through. So you actually don't sit there in confusion.
Right. I mean, it helps that those are literally crimes.
Yeah.
It's super obvious, but
the super obvious ones, but like, right. But then there's all kinds of, it's a very, from black to through very, very long gray scale of everything that is not.
Right.
And so the lighter grayer gets, the more you're like, wait, but this is love. Flowers is love. And, making sure that they have food is love, and making sure that their clothes is love, and making sure that they provide you money for college is love. Do you know? And like, all of those things are like, for most part, like, I don't think there will be a human being who would ever place any of those things that I'm saying out loud right now on any scale other than love and light and whiteness. But I was so confused of why it felt like crap, because those things are very, what's the word that is going to be triggering here for everybody else?
They get something out of it, which is not necessarily bad, but what they're getting out of it is soothing a pain body.
Yeah, wait. Maniacally malicious? Is that?
Maniacally?
Maniacally malicious? What's maniacally? Like?
Maniac-like?
Yeah, maniacally malicious.
Yeah.
That is the description that came into me, which is, I don't even know what the word means, but that's what inserted was.
Yeah.
It was that, but for the all, for all intents and purposes, to me, disguised as love or presented as love.
Right.
And so as a child, I think what happened is I sat in so much confusion about why I felt the way I felt versus how I was told that this was supposed to feel. And that disconnect, I think, really, like, inceptified within me this stuckness.
Yeah.
Of, like, broken child, confused of what love is. And so then the rest of my life, really, like, you were a reflection of that. Like, okay, let's just not love, right?
Yeah.
Marrying someone to rescue them and then be their knight in shining armor is not a thing, right? That's not love. But like, you just get lost about these ideas because the maniacal love that I experienced before was presented as love.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And so, maniacal, is that the word? Yeah, maniacal. Am I pronouncing it right? Yeah. And so the gift that I had, I guess, was just seeing through that, like, oh, holy shit. And there was this essence of me, like, that child was kind of like opened up and let go, in a sense. This is like my third time that this has happened, there's a let go of that entity, that stuckness. There was a child in confusion.
Yeah.
It was so cathartic because, like, I felt that being, that entity, move on, I guess. And it was so peaceful. And then, and everything right now, I realized, okay, well, because it was so broken, but yet I was still the child who was wanting love. On my end, I was abusing them, right? Because I wanted them to be different. I wanted them to fix themselves. I wanted them to recognize that the flowers are not good and the money is not good and the food is not good.
Right.
And which is like, would be life-threatening and completely devastating for them to actualize, because it is not something that anybody would see through, especially at their age. But I was just fighting. The child within me was fighting for them to see through that.
Yeah.
Because what I wanted was, I actually still wanted that love from my parents. That was true love that I never got. Now, I feel that love internally without the pain body. But then what I didn't realize is there's a child on me who is still fighting for that love in the physical expression.
What's interesting is that them poking your trigger ended up poking their trigger. You being triggered and your reaction to it, it wasn't an overreaction. It was just an explanation of it. But that, I'm sure, triggered them. Their trigger caused them to do it to you. Your trigger of, yeah, these flowers don't mean what you think they mean, triggered them. And then, yeah, so it's like a trigger to trigger to trigger.
Yeah, but that is what a relationship is.
Right.
Relationship is to work out those triggers.
Yeah, I know you being triggered triggers me.
Yeah.
And, especially if I cause if my trigger causes your trigger, that causes my trigger. And it's all too easy for that to go into some sort of trigger spiral, except you're good at stopping it. But a few years ago when we had that, I say talk, but it was many talks that before I finally accepted and realized that you were right, that that it had never really been love, right, between us.
Yeah, but I kept on saying that.
You kept on saying that, and I'm like, no, it was love, this and that, and look at these examples, and and you're like, yeah, look at those examples, and there's something there in each one of them, like the flowers. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but it's almost sinister.
Right. And it's like
it's subconsciously
sinister because, it's like I didn't know any better, I guess. I wasn't, actively, twisting a mustache going, how can I trick you, or get what I want out of you? But, thinking back now, there was that. There was with anything I would do, with any gift, with any gesture, there was some sort of calculation of, how will this be received? And then what will you think? And it was all there, how can I get the reaction that I want out of it?
It's not even what I think. What would I do then in order to reflect the amount of happiness that you're trying to have yourself? And then I would give you that, right? You're doing this because you want me to show you more love and more affection that you're feeling in that moment, right? Because that's your trigger.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't to get any, physical love.
But to you, appreciation of you is love.
Yeah.
When somebody appreciates you, do you think that's love?
Right. Yeah.
So the reason why you would give me these gifts and go out of the way in order to give them to me, and then look how thoughtful I am, and all this stuff, because it had to be thoughtful, had to be clever, it had to be not necessarily expensive, but just like meaningful.
Mm.
And when you would do that, what you would want from me is to appreciate how much effort or how much thought or how much cleverness that you were able to deliver. Look how good you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then what you would get from me is that appreciation would literally check all the boxes that you have devised in the process of getting me the gift.
Right. I mean, that, and, I can trace that right back to childhood of, being, appreciated, acknowledged, praised, whatever was the closest I ever felt to being loved.
Yeah. So what you were getting from me through the gift giving is the acknowledgement that you are clever, that you are smart, that you are appreciated, that this is way beyond what normal gift is. And this is better than better.
Right. But when you look at it like that, that's not love.
Oh no, that's convoluted shit.
Right. Giving you the, what was it? I snuck out to the garage one night years ago, and I installed the iPod adapter in our old Jeep. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to love it. It's going to be this awesome thing. And you can plug I don't remember if it was still iPods or if it was a phone, an old 30-pin style iPhone back then. But you could play music off your phone in the car. Wow, imagine that now. I was just like, oh my gosh, she's gonna love it. It's gonna be so great. But really, she's gonna think I'm awesome because I did this. I thought of this. I bought this. I installed this.
Yeah. Right. And so it's like, could be
what could be
true gift.
A true gift gets messed up along the way.
Yeah. Is that still triggering?
It is.
Why is that?
Because it's like there's a lot of those. In fact, it's like it's all of those.
That's the thing. Is when you start digesting it and cutting through the truth, like that's this is why it will be extremely difficult for most people to admit to. And this is why you fought me on it probably for 4 years.
Yeah. It used to be, it was almost like a personal, I would say, oh, if you don't like it, we can return it. But it was like, if you don't like it, then I have failed and that reflects badly on me. And, yes, we'll return it because there's no point in keeping something that we spend money on that you don't like. But there was a...
Yeah, you would take it very personally.
It was a shot if I got you something you didn't like it.
Yeah, and honestly, we used to keep a lot of it just because I could tell that it registered so much as like, oh my gosh, this gift was supposed to be, saving grace, and then here it is, just
in the
opposite thereof.
Yeah.
So that I mean, there are, I don't. We have talked about this, but there's so many of these actions that are just blind. And, the reason why I say it's abuse is because you're abusing yourself. That's the truth. The truth is you're in active abuse of yourself because that is your choice of not processing the reason behind your actions, right? And then because you're not acknowledging the self-abuse that you're inflicting yourself onto, then you project it onto others because amplification of it is the only way you can even start to perceive it within yourself. And so unbeknownst to self, what then you think are acts of love are actually acts of your internal abuse of self that you don't recognize, then you drag in your loved one into. So I'm not saying you're actively going out, beating them up and abusing them. What I'm saying is through the choice of not addressing or processing your own traumas and pain bodies in a constructive way, you project them onto your loved one and then just project that abuse onto your loved one.
Right.
So there's like a caveat. It's not like love equals abuse. Love is love, but
the actions
that you partake in, that you think are love, are actually self-abuse being projected onto people around you.
Right. And in a sense, you're using and abusing them.
Yes,
or
right. To
soothe your own.
Yeah, in order to make yourself feel better and to fill whatever hole that you're not addressing. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's weird to think that that I can abuse you by throwing money at you, writing you checks, giving you gifts.
Yes.
But that is possible. In fact, that's probably how most money ends up moving between friends and family.
Yeah, I heard. I don't know if I'll go into this example or not. But there's plenty of stories out there that and this is just a woman generalizing it from the standpoint of men, but your gifts kind of apply to that. It's like, oh, the second I give her that gift of whatever, oh yeah, I have her locked, right? Because in the long run, you're afraid of being abandoned, right? And so if the woman responds just the right way to a specific gift, then just enough cleverness, just enough nuance to where it feels super special and it feels super oriented towards her, right? Then guess what? I'm not going to be abandoned. I'm going to be loved forever because I have her locked. Do you know what I mean? Like most men, most men's gift giving from a romantic standpoint are that. Or like, oh, if I shower her with gifts, guess what? She's not going anywhere type of a thing, right?
Yeah.
But because they have abandonment issues from their childhood and they're not processing them. And so how do I get someone to stick around?
Got to lock them up.
Got to lock them up. And then in this case, like what with gifts, right? I knew someone who would lock people up with children. Like, oh, if she has enough children with me, then, and she doesn't work, she has nowhere to go. Do you know what I mean? So there's that. Like, is that, oh my gosh, that is epitome of not love, right? But
I wonder if that's who I think it is.
There's actually multiple people that I think of that I'll explain to you later. But yeah, that is very typical. But in order to, I mean, think about it, like, how is that not abuse? Quite literally,
right?
Both for her and the unborn child
and the children. Yeah, right. I mean, that's not a healthy place to bring a child into,
right? But for all intents and purposes, right, to a woman being around a man and man wanting to have a child with this woman and then another child and another child.
On one hand, that
you would almost like, oh my gosh, that is like ultimate love.
There are plenty of people who, yes, that is the pinnacle of love is I want more children with you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with more children with people. It's not that. It's I want more children with you to help reinforce that you can't possibly leave me.
Yeah.
That's not healthy.
Yeah. We've had this conversation before, like all of this we're kind of repeating from the previous one, but maybe the difference between this one is one, recognize within you when something doesn't feel right, it's probably because it's abuse and not love. Right. And by abuse, I mean conscious or subconscious using of terminologies and behaviors of love-like behaviors in order to disguise themselves as points of unprocessed trauma coming out at you and being disguised as love, right? There's one. And then two, if you are triggered by that, like I was, then maybe recognize this is what it was within me, that there's this broken child that I had within me that was very much hoping, right? The reason why I wasn't abandoning in those situations and the reason why I wasn't leaving those situations or pointing them out vigorously was because there was this broken child within me that was hoping that it will be recognized. Or if I said just enough things, or if I pointed them out, even like in this case, I was pointing them out, but only really because I wanted their behavior to change in order not to be this broken love or abuse, really, but actually be something healthy.
Right.
I wanted a healthy relationship, and I wanted healthy behavior from my parents, and not the maniacal, abuse that I was receiving.
Yeah.
And so, it was really hard to actualize into that because I mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago, but it came up with so much pain, like, that is kind of the liberating point of myself that I'm so grateful for, that like, it felt so painful to be loved so hard. Do you know what I mean?
Quote, loved.
Loved. Yeah. When I say loved, to be loved in that way, that like not being able to place that love and define it as what it was really painful experience. And instead having it somehow be fitted into love really fucks you over. Like it completely fucks you over to where you're like, I don't even know what love is.
I want to know what love is.
Right?
Copyright. Yeah. No, I mean, I can relate.
Do you know what I mean?
I can relate to that.
It just fucks you over from the inside. Receiving something or being gifted gift of love when it's maniacal abuse.
Right. I mean,
in this case, so convolutedly designed as love and perceived as love. Disguised as love. And as a child, like you can't, it is impossible for you to differentiate until you become of, my age and you're like, oh, fuck.
Right. That's why everything feels
It feels
weird.
like shit.
Yeah.
Like everything that was supposed to feel great and amazing actually really, really felt like shit.
Right. I mean, yes, I can think back to many gifts that I've received. I don't know about from you, but from my parents at least, that were like, even though this may be what I wanted, this may be explicitly what I asked for, but it's like there's something
The
there
reason
that like
why,
kind of
the
messes it
reason,
up.
like at the end there, I kind of like rejected the gifts from my parents.
Yeah.
But yeah, because every time we would have a gift exchange, it was like, oh yeah, well, it's this much money. Oh yeah, and there's this ticket dollar sign to it, and like,
how
oh
much,
look,
how
you're
much
supposed
money
to.
or effort or time went into getting it? Yeah.
It's the money for your mother. Her pain body is income, and so in order to feel not secure, in order to feel
Appreciated.
like a whole being, and not an outcast and not rejected by the world, she needed to receive a certain amount of status in her mind. And so a lot of times gift giving was that status. What you were projecting onto my father is actually what your mother's is. But my father's slightly different, right? With her, it is tied to the dollar amount. Like,
yeah,
with him, it's tied to scarcity / I'm willing to go there, and I'm willing to go out of my way in order to give you this much
like a
money.
sacrifice.
Yeah, in some way.
And with me, it was
with your mom is look at the ticket amount.
Yeah, with me, it was how clever, how special could I make it?
Yeah,
how uniquely you could I make it?
Yeah. Which is also fucked up.
Right. Right. Because it was how uniquely you can I make it ... so that you would appreciate it.
Yeah. You would appreciate it.
You would appreciate it. I mean, same thing, the ticket amount. So you would appreciate it. And the struggle I went through so that you would appreciate it. I think that's there.
Yeah. It's the ticket amount is there in the mind that look how expensive this is.
Look how much I care because I spent this much. Look how much I care because I'm sacrificing. Look how much I care because I went out of the way to make it, unique to you.
Yeah.
There is this, look how much I care because of what I went through, whether that's money or struggle or time or effort or whatever.
Well, no, in your mother's case is, look how wealthy I feel when I am able to give this much money.
Right.
Look how wealthy I am. Look how wealthy to her is therefore a good human being, therefore not a reject.
Right.
Therefore I feel like I have reached my pinnacle.
Right. But in order for that to work, you have to like recognize and appreciate the.
The feedback has to be there.
The feedback is what.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that what the core is.
Yeah.
The core is when she tells you, oh, this is how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. Yeah. Like, validate to me back that, look, you're at the pinnacle of your personal pain body, that, look, you have arrived.
Yeah.
You're rich. You're not rejected by society because you're poor.
Yeah.
You're not made fun of because you don't have nice clothes. That is her pain body. Yeah. Honestly, that is a shallow pain body. I will go ahead and say that. But that is, at the time of communication and gift giving, that is what she was receiving.
Yeah. No, I mean,
dollar amounts are the easiest ones to see through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I always had brand name clothes, not just brand name clothes, brand names with brand names, very visible clothes growing up. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that those were, nicer clothes. Those were just the clothes that I had. But that's.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's like, oh, there's always a brand name visible on everything that I wore. On purpose. Yeah,
on purpose. And in Ukraine, that was many people fall in onto that pain body too. Is that just being poor, like one country poor, but then like also like just family poor? That is a very typical pain body and expression in Ukraine.
There's almost this trope of like people who probably don't have an awful lot of discretionary income, but they wear, some sort of tracksuit, and it's Adidas this, Nike that, and whatever I don't know what the brands are, but
Yeah, but
they're all
the name on the
branded out.
Yeah, the name on the brand and how much then
how much that would cost.
suggest that
Yeah.
cost within itself is a soothing pain body, right? We have talked about this, but this is just another way it projects itself, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody goes out and gives you, a Prada purse, right? Oh my gosh,
Supreme.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
It is irrelevant. It thankfully it's almost easier to see through because they're giving it to you for a very broken reason. And then if you're receiving it for the reason that they're giving to you, then you're receiving it for a very broken reason. Because in the long run, if you sit there and if you're in your centered state of being and you're, let's say, aware of love and the flow and aware of this generalized conception of reality, a label slapped on your chest of a specific brand seems comical. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're bathed in love and you're one with the universe, I don't even know how that would possibly matter. In fact, it might actually feel uncomfortable because there's an extra layer of fabric separating you from the flow of energetic expression. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Much less the energy that item would carry, considering what it's actually supposed to represent, right? At some point, I would hope that it would make somebody feel nauseous. That is my visceral reaction to things, is when I recognize a process, and then I recognize all the trauma that I place into the flower. That is my trained response into not repeating the cycle, is nauseousness.
Yeah.
So I kind of design this as a go-to mechanism, going, okay, well, I tend to be blind to these following things. And then in my mind, then this is kind of like the process of how I force in awareness. I would go, you really want awareness. Look how blind I am to this or this or that. And then, I've said this before, but, instilling nausea into unawareness is a very quick awareness trigger.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since that process that I received and the confusion of love, and then giving the gift of seeing it as a subconscious abuse, was very eye-opening and then very trauma releasing on my end, because I'm like, oh look, I will say this, if I go out and I want anything from anyone, right? I don't know if I said this. Have I said this on the podcast? Or I know I've said this to you in person. But if I go and I want anything from anyone at all, that's trauma. That's abuse, right? And so just like having that as an expression of, that is what, if you need like a guiding star or guiding light to go, wait, how can I see through my own blindness of unawareness? Go, oh look, I want this person to behave this way. And I want this person not to do this thing.
I want this person to think this thing.
I want this person to think this thing about me, or they want this person to say this back to me when I give this gift to them, or I want this person to not experience everything that I experienced as a child. And so here's how that would look. If it's any of those things, that's unprocessed trauma.
Right.
So if you want anything from anyone, or anyone to do anything for you, or anyone not to feel something that you have felt, or anyone to in any way be a specific way. And this is a big statement, for anyone to be a specific way, both in good and in bad, that is unprocessed trauma.
So how do you give a gift?
I mean, you know how centered being feels like. I mean, you and I have spent enough time knowing what that is. You give a gift because you think this person will love it, regardless of how it reflects upon you. But but there needs to be that awareness,
right,
to begin with, until you're in that space, and that is your natural flow. Is I don't want anything from anyone, but I can give someone a gift without an attached pain body.
Yeah,
that is a difficult place to be. And I would say, I don't know if we're capable of being in that place on Earth right now.
And when after that conversation, and I realized that everything I'd ever done or given for you was from the wrong place. It was like, it took a while before I could, figure out how to, you know, get something for you for a birthday, for Christmas or whatever.
Yeah.
In a, I don't know if disconnected is the right word, but maybe disconnected manner.
Trauma disconnected.
I don't need to buy it through a pain body and give it through a pain body and judge your reaction through a pain body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The gift exchange was really fucked up. But honestly, with you, your gift exchange was bred into fucked upness from your childhood.
It absolutely was. I can, that's a straight line in my mind. It's super, so that's the thing is it's, like the brand name or the dollar amount is really easy to see. Once I saw it, I'm like, this is really easy to see. It's really easy to see if I'm genuinely excited for you to have it or if I'm excited to get your response from it. Those are wildly different things.
Yeah. Like, to some extent, you and I, and Christmas is coming up, but you and I have that blindness to giving the number of gifts we give to our children and how they react to it. And that is a conversation I think that we need to have with them before this Christmas.
Yeah, especially because I don't know what they want.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's that at some point you and I have exhausted and projected the pain body onto them. It's like, it doesn't even matter if the gift is good, if it doesn't even matter if they get it, as long as there are a certain number of gifts. Because in the past they said, oh, look, this is not enough.
Like, yeah, that hurt.
That hurt us.
That hurt
right?
us.
And
we're
ever
like,
since
oh my gosh,
then,
that means we've failed our children.
Yes. And ever since then, we've been,
never again,
through our unprocessed trauma, trying to compensate for the number of gifts, not even if they're like good gifts. Like even like, oh, they have enough gifts to open, but then we're going to return half of them anyway. But that within itself is a solution to blindness of this pain body. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
The scarcity of not enough presents itself in giving boatload of shit that is useless.
Right.
Just so they have a certain number of things to open.
Right.
And then we through our personal abuse, train them into that situation as well.
Right. So every year we have to outdo the previous years.
Yeah. Right. But then, now
that's unsustainable.
Yeah. And we have toys, they're not into toys anymore, but we have toys back from childhood and they were never opened because guess what? We just overgave. Because it was like, oh, well, it's just another thing under the tree and it's just another thing under the tree. And I noticed that when I first moved here, there's a very American concept. Because
lots of gifts.
Lots of gifts. The tree has to be filled with gifts. Like think about how...
If you can see floor under the tree, you
think
failed.
About American consumerism. The picture of a tree in the American household is overflowing. Like if the 1/3 of the tree is not covered with gifts, you have failed. Right? And so... But that's a pain body that is one, obviously is very lucrative to project from the consumerism standpoint on Christmas spending. But two, it's very easy to be blind to in our personal blindness to what it means to live in scarcity and what it means to feel poor and what it means like not to be a good parent and not deliver enough.
Right. It's complicated. It's like, you don't want your children to feel like they had a bad Christmas.
Yeah.
You don't want them to feel like they're lacking in any way at all.
Or you let them down as a parent.
Or even as much as you don't want them to feel that, you really don't want to feel like you let them down.
Yeah, it's all about you. It's the pain body, the abuse of your personal process to what it means for you to fail as a parent and being projected onto them, what it means for them not to get enough, right? In Ukraine, I got one gift, period.
Yeah.
That's it. And I was happy. I was never not happy.
Yeah.
And I didn't even need to get that gift, but I just knew Santa would give me a gift and it was one gift.
I got, a few, maybe like 5. It was usually one big one and then a couple small ones. But all the presents under the tree growing up were significantly less than half of what one of our kids had in recent years.
Yeah, we kind of, I don't know, we have kind of lost ourselves to that, the statement we had 3 or 4 years ago where the kids said that was it. That was not enough presents at all. And then we just kind of blindly lost ourselves to it.
Yeah, that'll be a fun conversation.
I know we should have that conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe when we travel and they're trapped and they have nowhere to go. That's when we should spring this conversation on the airplane. Whole hour. We have so many uncomfortable conversations when we're traveling.
That's the time to do it. Locked up.
Like that. Unescapable. Yeah, to some extent, what I wanted to say is maybe this is like a progression that I'll just touch on. And I'm not sure if this is something we need to go into or this is a whole other podcast. But after I let go of like that concept that I was confused, right? And then there was still hoping to get certain type of love from my parents, and I kind of let that go. I'm not saying it's completely gone, but what I'm saying is I have like achieved a chunk of awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
From complete blindness to a chunk of awareness that I'm just a broken child who, one, has to acknowledge the pain that caused.
Right.
I'm not. The thing is, like, it's all personal, right? It's on me because I felt pain because I was confused, and then I recognized that there was pain that I was refusing to feel because it shouldn't have felt painful. Like there's something about that disconnect between that this should feel like love, but it actually feels like pain.
I understand and relate. Yes.
Yeah, there's. I'm sure if somebody has a psychology degree, they will know exactly what that is.
Right. There's a dichotomy there.
Yeah, that misplacing love as pain and then being lost to that idea. I think I spent up until a couple of months ago, or a couple of weeks ago, just confused about that.
Yeah.
And I slowly actualized myself into those ideas with other people, like especially with someone who's more distant. You know what I mean? Like to begin with, like, oh, if I had coworkers that would do this, it was easier for me to see through that. To go, oh, look, it's supposed to be a healthy relationship, but it's not. And then I had friends who were also in that same boat. Like, wait, this is supposed to feel good, and I'm supposed to be happy that I have this friend, but it feels like shit. Why? And then I didn't see through that. That is why I had all those relationships where I did not see, all the relationships were brought up in the past, where my friends were actually actively abusing me. But because I did not understand the difference between abuse and love, I didn't see, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like that just draws this generalized blindness on all of my behavior. And so it's easier to start to see through this, like with random people that you don't care about. And then friends is the next thing, because then you will have to eliminate a lot of friends, right?
Yeah, that's
you see,
true.
You verbalize to the friend and they change the way they behave, right? Or you verbalize to a coworker and they change the way they behave, or you just separate yourself from that, right? So that recognition is basically where you draw the line. You start to draw boundaries in the past where the boundaries were not had, right? And then with you, I basically did that same thing to you, right? Like you were kind of like the hardest thing for me to overcome because, I was very married to idea of having you around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the second I had to go, yeah, it is okay because this is abuse and it feels like shit and I can't continue to function that way.
Mm-hmm.
I had to basically, in my mind, let you go, to say, yeah, I'm willing to let this go because I can't have this be this way. I know this is love.
I mean, it's a very hard, but it's a very adult thing to do. It's very, I mean, I had to get to that point too, to where your own sovereignty needs to take a precedence. Your own safety, sanity, your own, energetic field needs to have a say, because I know I had just surrendered it all away.
Yeah. No, it took me a long time. It took me a long time with you because in the long run, like there's a very large part of me who wants to continue to have a good relationship with you, right? But if all the actions that you're progressing towards me are in fact abuse, and you're not even seeing through it, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know if I said this on the last podcast, but I know I said that afterwards, like when we were just sitting there talking and kind of like summarizing the whole thing, is basically, it's like, why can't you let me love you? Because that's what you're screaming towards me.
That
is what my parents are screaming towards me. Why are you making it so difficult to love you?
That is how I felt.
Right. Remember that episode where we kind of like uncovered you not being able to learn Russian and all that? That is the sentiment. Like, why do you make it so difficult to love you?
Right. No, and that is exactly how I felt in the peak of our, or maybe the nadir of our relationship. That is how I felt. It's like, all I want is to love you. Why won't you let me love you?
Yeah. But just like, all I want is...
And if I love you, then you will love me back.
Yeah.
But all I want is to love you so that you will love me back.
Yeah.
Why won't you let me?
Yeah.
Why are you fighting me on this?
Yeah. And we watched the show recently where it was showcased, but it was not described well, but we can touch on that. Remember that show Chaos?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's a character, they had Greek or Roman names. The
Orpheus.
Singer, Orpheus was a singer. And like he was worshipped by the world, I guess. But I'm assuming from the Greek mythology, he was worshipped by the world.
Maybe. But you could pick a rock star today, and that's basically...
Yeah, they're worshipped by the world, right? And then he was in love, like madly in love with Persephone? Is that what her name is?
I don't remember her name.
Whatever her name is, but she was played... His wife.
Yeah.
His wife. And like he was...
Lost in her.
Maniacal about it.
Yeah.
It was manically lost in her. And that action of being lost in her, and like he saw her as the muse and he worshipped her. Like she was literally his muse. But maybe Persephone, maybe if her name is Persephone, whatever her Greek name was, I don't remember, is what maybe she had muse-like qualities or quantities within her.
Yeah, I
don't know. But she was like, this is not love, right? And so she recognizes this as abuse. She realizes that this is not love.
And he's giving her, he seems to be wealthy, and he's giving her gifts, and he's writing songs about her, dedicated to her. And it's all the things that
he worships her on stage.
He literally worships her.
Yeah, he worships her.
And it's like, on the surface, it's all the things that you would think
she would want.
That
he thinks she should.
He thinks she would want.
That is what he needs to feel his pain.
Yeah, but it's, it's almost though, if you were to read a fairy tale, or you were to read some story, that is like how a girl's ideal is almost portrayed.
Yeah, to some extent.
Oh my gosh, this person loves me so much, they'll do anything for me.
They worship me. Yeah. Yeah. And so, in that extent, he was worshiping her to the point of suffocation.
Yeah.
But at no point did he see his maniacal worshiping of her as abuse. He just thought it was love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And later when he goes he goes to hell to retrieve her from hell.
The underworld.
Whatever. Same thing. She said, this is not love. You don't love me. And I don't know if we ever saw the storyline go to his end where he lets her go, but I don't know if inside of him he ever saw like, oh yeah, this is not love. I'm just fixated. Like he was fixated on her to the point of blindness.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
But it was ostensibly it was for her, but really it was for himself.
Yeah, it was just his personal pain body got lost in whatever that relationship held within him. And that's the thing, is it's so obscure that he probably doesn't even know through his personal trauma or pain body what she represents to him, right? That the story never explored that line of things. But that's what it is. So to her, it felt like total abuse, and she felt smothered and consumed. And she was extremely, and she ends up dying because she never verbalized to him that this is not working, right? But there's that discovery that is hard to do, that everything that feels like love and everything is just, love, 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 love. Why can't you let me love you? Look how much I love you, blah, 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 blah. It is actually just pure abuse. And that, I guess, to some extent, I'm drawing parallels to that feeling, the feeling that she had, to that same discovery that I received on my birthday, when I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just feels like total shit, and it's abuse.
No.
And for 40 years, I thought it was love.
When we were watching that, I'm like, oh yeah, that was me. And then as we're watching, I'm like, well, he handled that really well at the end. I'm like, he handled that a lot better than I did.
Yeah, but I don't know if he ever believed her, if he ever actualized that within himself. He just left because he needed to let her go.
Yeah.
But I don't think the show never took and actualized like, or look, that's actually what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And it has nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to consume her to feel
It's unclear.
Feel
Was he just going to move on to the next woman and do the same thing? Find a replacement.
Yeah. I mean, right. He's a rock star. So obviously there's a line of replacements.
Yeah.
So wait. I just had a thought that came up that.
That's funny because I noticed that too when we were watching it.
Yeah, when we were watching it, right? You would be like, "Oh my gosh, this is what to a woman who needs a knight in shining armor." We like literally started our beginning of our podcast with this, 50 episodes ago. This would be like, "Oh my gosh, yes, look, this is everything I need."
Right. To every other woman in the world, this is exactly what they would want.
Because it's a pain body that they're not addressing, that this man represents.
It feels like shit.
Yeah, but and truth is, once you discover that this is my pain body and this man is the refractory nature of its soothing, then it doesn't work. It feels nauseous. Like you're literally nauseous about it. You want to kill yourself because this is too much. In my dream last night, that's what I want to say. In my dream last night, right? The person in my dream wanted to consume me. Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's just bringing up that feeling that literally the human being that loves you so much, it feels like they're consuming you. Quite literally. Oh, there you go. In Zach, we brought this up, but in Zach's Bush interview that he had, that's his theory, is that through that abuse, they're draining the life force out of you.
Yeah, that is it.
Right. That's his take on it, is that their consumerism of you through this abuse, through this unprocessed trauma that then they push onto you, is actually draining your life force and it's killing you.
Yeah.
That's a whole other take on this.
Yeah.
But it did feel that way. It does feel that way.
I think that is a very real way to look at it, is that, when I would give you gifts and it's all about your reaction and how I can suck that out of you.
Yeah, you're sucking that energy out of you.
I am literally and figuratively feeding off of that.
Yeah, you're parasite.
And when I feed off of that, I get something, but that takes away from you.
Yeah, well, you're a parasite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you can both grow together.
But at that point, you don't want anything off of me. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes. You don't want anything off of me.
That's the way you grow together.
Yeah. The second you want something from somebody, good, bad, whatever, just anything from anybody, you're a parasite and it's abuse.
Yeah.
Like the example of that chaos relationship is that was abuse. Right. She died. She died because she was at the end of it and she just couldn't verbalize that. And she said she's been unhappy for 2 years, right? And so in her case, she was unhappy for 2 years. You and I don't know. I guess I was unhappy with you for many, many years. Right. But yeah, that progression, sooner or later, that's, what you were talking about, that just you have to draw a boundary. You have to be able to draw a boundary. If the person on the other side does not want to recognize their actions as abuse, there's not much you can do on your end, right? There's not much you can do. Right, you and I had, and I'm not exaggerating here, probably, let's say, when did the honeymoon stage wear out? 2005-ish, it was probably gone, maybe even earlier. Oh no, I mean, heck, we started fighting about the masturbation right away before we were even married. So we didn't really have a honeymoon stage. So yeah, like with you and I, that process of me actualizing into how this is abuse and how I'm being drained by it took me from 2003 until, I don't know. But then we continued. I continued to point out more and more things. Do you know what I mean? I mean, to some extent, still right now.
And I didn't, I didn't understand them. I didn't feel like I had a framework to understand them.
Yeah. No, I
And
say that recognizing that I was in the same position towards you. I was doing the same thing towards you.
Yeah.
Whenever I discovered within myself that I was just a broken child who wanted my parents to love me the right way and not abuse me, and there's a lot of pain and resentment that I felt towards them for loving me in an abusive way. You know what I mean? Like I had to let that go. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am abusing them because I want them to love me just from an unbroken place. And I want them to be different because I want to be loved from an unbroken place, right? The second I recognize that there's still this part of me that is fighting to be loved a specific way, I realize, oh, I'm abusing them, right? And then with you, what I realized with you is I want you to love me. As long as I want you to love me from that unbroken way, that is me abusing you.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So in that case, it's either I decide Elliot is and what he will be, and I have zero control over how he is or he's not. I can point out to him if he's functioning out of a pain body. I can point out to him if he's maybe not seeing through his conscious or subconscious wave of behaviors. But that is the extent in which I have a reach, right? I can just be there to facilitate awareness.
Yeah. And
I am blind to mine, and I'm hoping you can verbalize, say, hey, Tanya, look, you're not really aware about that. And you specialize in being blind, and so I can go, hey, once again, you're not aware about that, right? But that is how we grow together.
Right.
But in the long run, out of this marriage, there's nothing that I want from you.
Right.
And only then can I offer love.
Right. It can't be, I need you to do this. I need you to be this.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know that, if that's the circumstances, there's a lot of marriages that are not
right.
love.
It's a very different idea of what a marriage is.
Or a relationship.
A relationship.
Any relationship.
Yeah. It is a very different idea than what I ever imagined. Certainly different than what we're fed as society of,
Yeah. Well,
you need to do this to win her love. You need to do this to make him happy. You need to, all this, whatever.
Yeah. Especially since society drives us expectations.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm not going to go to this as a personal example for Aiden, so I'm just not going to say it. But you're right. There's these like narratives, and somebody wants you to behave a certain way out of a pain body of what they need to get out of you.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm talking about. And so then you, as this person, you were like, wait, I need to do this in order for you to feel this, so that other person feels that.
I need to have.
It's like twice removed.
I need to have the right reaction. I need to
behave a certain way. Yeah. Right. I need to go out of my way to do this, so then this person does not feel that. That's abuse. It's just pure abuse, right? But society is never honest about it, and I guess maybe that is the change that I am hoping that we can all see. Is that if we're just honest about our actions, and it's the simplest way to go about it, if I want somebody to do something, if I want something out of somebody, if I'm asking them to do this thing because this thing somehow will do something for me, positive or negative, that's not love. And that is abuse. And then, from Zach Bush's extension is you're literally draining the life force out of them and killing them.
Right. I mean, I can see, because, everybody's on both sides of that. Everybody's doing it to everybody, and everybody's having it done to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how draining it is, because it's happened to me. I can go back and go, oh, I can see how draining that was to other people that I've done it to also.
Yeah. Well, how I was draining you is in the long run, all along the way, I wanted you to love me a certain way.
Yeah.
Without the abuse, which is the same thing I wanted from my parents.
Yeah.
Right. What I wanted from you was the same thing that I wanted from my parents, was to be loved.
What I wanted from you was the same thing I wanted from my parents.
Yeah.
Was to be loved.
But
to be loved the way I wanted to be loved.
Yeah, but in your case,
to be loved the way I was, the only way I knew how to be loved,
which was broken way.
Which was a broken way.
Yeah, which just
your way,
let
maybe
me
less broken than my way, but it was.
What you wanted from me was you wanted to consume all of my life force to feel fulfilled with love.
Yeah, sure.
You were consuming me.
I mean, through your reactions and opinions and thoughts of me.
You were consuming me.
Yes.
You were consuming me. It was just a pure drain of consumerism. And in my case, what I wanted from you was to stop consumerism and just love me while you're whole, right? Which is what I didn't realize. What I wanted was just love me from the standpoint of anonymity, right? Is that the word?
Equanimity?
Maybe
Anonymity.
equanimity. Maybe equanimity. Like just from sovereign space of being. Actualize yourself into you. Find out who you are. Stop wanting things from me. And then there's quite literally nothing you actually need to do to love me.
Yeah.
Just be a sovereign being on your own.
Yeah.
That is what I wanted. Like, what everything that I wanted from everybody ever in their life is just that.
Right. But that made no I mean, I guess I don't think I heard it that way. But even if I did, that would make no sense to me 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I remember we had lots of fights and you're like, it doesn't feel like love. And I'm like,
I kept on saying that because I'm like,
and I'm like, what
this
do you
is not love. This is not love.
And so that would almost make me double down. And I'm like, well, I gotta do more.
Well, you're like, just give me a list of what you need to love me. Give me a list of things I need to do in order to love you.
Yeah. No, I said that because I'm like,
are you fucking serious? Do you think it's love if I have to give you a list and you go through check marks of this list? That's like the most fucked up thing I ever heard.
Right. But
you don't even understand how much rage that brought on within me because it literally triggered me back into my childhood state of being where what you're telling me and what you're asking me to do is literally to continue to abuse me. Let me continue to abuse you.
Give me the list
and
of ways.
And it feels like shit. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm trapped because I don't understand what is it that I'm not understanding. Do you know what I mean? I was so lost on what is it that I'm not understanding.
Right.
Because I didn't understand what I was feeling was abuse.
And to me, it was like, I was lost and didn't understand. And I'm like, just clarify specifically what it is you want me to do.
Yeah.
Then, because I'm happy to do it. Because then I will get what I want back out of you.
It seems like in my entire life, I have been spinning my wheels with this, and it's so simple and it's so blatant to me, and it's just impossible for everybody else to see that I feel like the only crazy person in the world. Like I literally felt like I'm the only.
I also felt like you were the only crazy person in the world because I'm like, I feel like I'm doing all the right things.
Yeah. Why don't you let me love you?
Why don't you let me love you?
Yeah. And it's like, when you're the only crazy person, and let's say, for all intents and purposes, in my opinion, 8 billion of other people are this way, and I'm the only one who's not, it really makes you question your sanity.
Right? I was like, I was just thinking, why can't you just be like, I assume everyone else is, they would be so happy to receive these things and so happy for me to,
give you flowers
or demonstrate my love, however it was. Because that's easy for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm good at that, I guess. But B, so I don't have to change. I don't have to, figure out what's really going on and address it. That wasn't necessarily at the forefront of my thought, but subconsciously, it's like there's a resistance to it because it's like if I accept that what I'm doing is wrong, that has a lot of ripple effects. It's not just this is wrong.
Resistance.
It's everything is wrong. If the way that I am loving you is wrong, then oh shit, there's a lot wrong in my entire life. My entire life it's all built up on some sort of
false premise.
Yes, pillars of sand.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go there. So you fit. No, I'm not going to fit to that. You fit to mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't want everything that I have ever been, everything that I've ever known to crumble away. Because
We're going back to my sandbox theory.
There you go. Because
Yeah.
it's like, who am I anymore? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it completely deteriorates you as a human being.
Yeah.
In the good way.
In the end, it is in a good way. It's horrible and painful because I had to go through almost a disillusion of self to.
You had to let the false self die.
Yeah.
It's a death.
Which was really, really scary. But on the other side of it now, it's like, oh yeah, that was the false self. That was not really me. I can see that there was me in there poking through here and there, but there was, a lot of shit on top of it, trying to, feed the pain body in bizarre and contrived ways.
Yeah, and you're literally draining the life force from everyone around you if you function in that mode. Not just me, your children, your parents, right? It's everybody that you love, for sure. The sad part is everybody that you love is at the brunt because they're the front line. They're the front line of your feelings. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh my gosh, nauseating in multiple ways, both on the receivership of it and on the extension thereof, right? Because, on that same way, I can see that, like, yeah, me wanting you to love me the right way is just that. I'm draining you out of it. Yeah. It's funny. Every time we record a version of this podcast, I think we have recorded many versions of this particular episode.
I think this is the most emphatic.
It's the simplest thing that nobody wants to admit to themselves. I think that's what it is. And there's all these approaches to it.
Because of how hard it is and because of what it really means if you accept that.
It is the only thing that is required for true awakening. Is admitting to this within yourself and running with it and adopting it and actually doing something about it, right? This is it. If you just decide to concentrate on this and unravel all the aspects of this within yourself, that is awakening. Because you're masking off something as love that is actually abuse, and you're propagating blindness instead of love.
Yeah.
And you're burying down deep into blindness.
Yeah, and you're bringing other people into it too.
Yeah, but that's just deception, right?
Yeah. I guess trying to think if this is universal or not. If all pain bodies are interactions with people, is there a pain body? I guess you can have a safety, security pain body that isn't necessarily tied to other people. But most of them involve interactions with other people. What they're going to say or do or think or be perceived or this or that.
No, you have your own story inside of that you're trying to address.
What I mean is other people are really good at triggering pain bodies. They can be triggered by, without a person, I guess, if by events or circumstances.
You should flip that narrative. It's not the other people triggering their pain body. You will find something within the other person to trigger what needs to be processed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you said like, oh, your dad is, whatever you said. Yeah. But it's just because you're looking at it from like, oh, I'm the victim and he's the perpetrator.
Right.
In this case, in the long run, your actions have nothing to do with me. You want to consume me, not because it's me. It's just because it's somebody who, in your mind, represents the refractory nature of, if this person loves me, then I'm whole. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you could put Betsy across the seat right here in front of you, and Betsy will be that exact same copy. It doesn't matter that it's me.
Mm.
The only difference is I basically spend 20-something years fighting with you on this. Do you know one?
Yeah.
And Betsy probably wouldn't have. But because my pain body was, why it feels like shit, it feels like shit, it feels like shit. And this is what I wanted to say, kind of like as a, I say this every time, I guess, but I said this in many, many different ways. But like the gift, I guess, I say the gift that I was given is to come in and have that difference be defined within me. Like I feel what love is at all times. And so I was never given an option to get lost in like the pretense. And so even when I would receive something that was allegedly presented as earthly love, it would make me feel terrible inside.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Because if you inherently know what love is, then everything else that isn't, especially if it's pretending to be,
feels wrong.
It's really obvious that it's not.
Right. And so the gift, I guess, that I received is somehow, even early on in my life, I saw everything for what it was and not for what it was pretending to be. The only difference is I couldn't verbalize that difference. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I felt it, and it actually deposited within me in the pain body confusion phase, like quite literally as pain. Because at the same time, I had this gauge, I had this unwavering gauge of what it felt like in truth.
Right.
The truth of that love never went away. And so everything else presented itself as confusion and pain.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if, is that, do you have that, or is it just? No,
I mean, especially young and especially early, because, I didn't realize this until you helped me see it later in life. It's really hard to articulate or even understand. It's like, eventually you got through to me, and I'm like, at first I felt it and I couldn't explain it or articulate it or put it into words, but I felt it. And that's hard. I mean, it's painful, hard. And then it's like, once you sit on it for a while, you're like, okay, now I know what it means. And I'm able to, maybe put it into words or convey it. And it's like,
yeah.
But it's like, you were like, you're loving me the wrong way. And I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means. That's not useful. It's like the client saying, make it snazzier. It's like, well, okay, that doesn't help. That's not constructive. But at the same, I don't blame you for it, because I'm like, I can't do it. I couldn't do any better. But
I guess what I'm trying to say is I always felt this gauge and difference, and like the tails wrapped around it too.
I know.
In order to what? Support the tail, support the leg.
I don't know. That's her back leg sticking up.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Like, because I always had this gauge of the truth versus the abuse.
Yeah.
Even though at the time I couldn't actually define those as such. It was always like, what the fuck is happening? But like the entire world is that. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Why am I feeling something that nobody else is feeling?
Right.
And
because I'm like, why am I with the one person who feels something that no one else is feeling? It's such,
I will, and this is not a woozy me, but like, I will just say it's such a painful place to be. It's such a painful place to be. The amount of pain that generated, knowing that.
Yeah.
And then like still being confused about it and not having a place to belong. I'm sure there are the people who are in the exact same position, who are just this utterly confused right from birth. And I'm sure that this is some sort of like psychologically defined medical condition that psychologists, like acknowledge, and then they try to help you verbalize and process.
Mm-hmm.
But because subconsciously, I think we all feel that. It's just I was very conscious of it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's the difference. It's just being consciously aware of that and struggling with that awareness, as opposed to later realizing it and not being aware of it. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah. I mean, I like thinking back, I'm like, okay, I know that I felt like I wasn't, quote, loved the right way growing up. At the time, I don't think I could have articulated that. I don't think I understood that, but I certainly felt it.
No, that's the thing. I didn't understand it either.
I felt
But it feels
that something was off.
Yeah, but it feels,
But
it's the pain. You don't process that.
Yeah, but you don't, there's nothing to compare it to. It's like,
well,
I don't,
like with me, there is something to compare it to. That's the thing. I was like, I know what love feels like.
I guess I must have known what love feels like in order to know that this isn't it, or I just know that this just didn't feel right for some reason.
Yeah.
It's like, and I just turned it into, well, here's what feels the best is when I get, love and attention and affection. So I will craft my life around getting that in any way possible from everybody.
Yeah.
And, it's like, well, this seems to work for me. So I'll just keep doing that. And I just assume everybody else has something vaguely similar. So, I mean, I think that's what we do is we just assume that everybody's kind of like us. Maybe not. That's what I did. I just assumed that everybody is more or less like me. And, attention and affection feels good to me. So attention and affection must feel good to everybody. I mean, it probably doesn't feel bad, but it's, to everybody, but I don't think everybody gets what I got out of it.
Yeah, I think we just fall into the narrative of like the cultures and the social norms of like what you see love is. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll do these following things. And then that seems to be like culturally accepted as a norm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as long as your narrative of love or is tied to actions or tied to like social standards or tied to cultural accepted behaviors, you're just functioning in a narrative through the pain body, then abusing and draining people around you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that applies to more than just love. I think it applies to everything.
Oh, it applies to everything.
I mean, the cultural standard is, you grow up and you go to school and you get good grades and you go to college and you get good grades and then you get a good job and then, it used to be, and then you're at that company for 30 years and then, you retire and you get married and you have a house with a picket fence and 2.5 kids and a dog. And that was the socially accepted ideal of life. And, maybe there was a time when you could get a job and keep it for 30 years, but even that aside, is that what you want? Maybe some people want that. Maybe some people genuinely want that, independent of it being the social archetype of a perfect life. Maybe not. What is it that you want? What is it that would actually make you happy to live your life? And
but most of the time, what makes us happy to live our life is whatever pain body we're trying to soothe.
Yeah.
So
I was trying to word that in a way. What is it that fulfills your soul instead of fulfills your pain body?
Yeah, but you first have to gain awareness to understand the difference.
I mean, that is true.
That's what I'm saying and this conversation is, if people are not willing to see the abuse that they put on themselves and then thus put on others because of it, there's no awareness. The second you start denying yourself awareness, even for little things, you're on a slippery slope of denying yourself awareness for the rest of your life. And into the things that really kind of matter the most to you, which is like self-happiness, fulfillment, and then true love around you, regardless of how that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, so that blindness just, like gets exasperating at some point. And that's what the hitting the rock bottom is because enough blindness sooner or later and you're done for. And if you do have people in your life who are able to help you see through them, I mean, I would highly suggest taking that opportunity and going, wait, maybe there's something behind here. Do you know what I mean? This is triggering and people are leaving me and I don't want to have people around me or whatever. In my case, the presentation is, I don't want to have people around me. Like, that is how I, like, this feels like total shit. I don't want to have people around me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, that over the years, that has always been my pattern. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it totally feels like shit. I'm just going to go away because this is not working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which to begin with, because I didn't even know where to verbalize. And then later I did started to verbalize and people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right. And then there's nothing you can do.
That's the thing is that,
And that's okay.
It's okay. But it's, what the fuck are you talking about? Because it's hard to articulate and explain. And it's even harder for someone who it's harder, or even harder for someone else to understand.
Yeah.
Because in order to understand that, you have to let a lot go.
Yeah. Well, you almost have to deteriorate your entire construct of self.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody's willing to do that.
No, it's hard. It sucks. It's worth it. In the end, having gone through that, I think you would agree, having gone through that, it's so much better on the other side. But man, it's not fun going through it.
Yeah. 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 There's that.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.